In the year 2425, humanity was not alone in the cosmos, yet it never felt more isolated. The solar system, a sprawling neighborhood with humans dotting Mars, the moons of Jupiter, and even the more distant reaches like Saturn's Titan, hummed with the activities of a species forever reaching further. Earth, a vibrant blue gem, remained the cradle of civilization and the hub of human endeavors, even as its children ventured farther into the black void. Captain Jack Warner, aged 56, a seasoned commander in the United Earth Space Force, gazed out from the observation deck of the Unity station, orbiting high above Earth. The station served as a beacon of human achievement and a forward operating base against threats. With steel-gray hair cut close to the scalp and a face carved from years of command and personal loss, Jack embodied the stoic resolve that had become a hallmark of Earth's military leaders. A veteran of numerous conflicts within the asteroid belts and beyond, Jack had a reputation as a cunning strategist, beloved by his crew and respected by his adversaries. His motivations were simple: protect humanity, uphold honor, and ensure that Earth remained sovereign against any who dared threaten its people. The weight of legacy bore down on his shoulders, a legacy that was as much a part of him as the medals that adorned his uniform. But now, a new threat loomed larger than any that came before. The Zoltraxians, a formidable alien empire from beyond the Kuiper Belt, had begun encroaching on human territories. They sought the rich mineral resources of the asteroid belt, essential for both their technology and their expansionist ambitions. This wasn't just a skirmish over rocks. It was a fight for survival, for control of the very arteries that fed the growing needs of humanity's far-flung colonies. The news of a Zoltraxian siege at a strategic mining colony came as a bitter blow. The reports were still coming in: ships lost, lives vanished into the cold silence of space, and the ever-encroaching shadow of an enemy that seemed unstoppable. Jack had seen the holographic images: green and black ships, sleek and deadly, cutting through space with a precision that spoke of a militaristic culture not unlike their own. In a war room, a stark utilitarian space deep within the bowels of the station, Jack met with his senior staff. The air was thick with tension, the walls lined with screens displaying maps and live feeds from the front lines. "Options," Jack barked, his voice cutting through the murmurs like a ship through the void. Lieutenant Garcia, a wiry man with sharp eyes and a sharper mind, was first to respond. "We could reinforce the colonies, try to outlast them. But, sir, their tech is decades ahead. Our usual tactics won't cut it this time." Jack nodded, his jaw set. "So we adapt, we innovate. We do what humans have always done, find a way to survive." "Sir, there's talk of the hidden fleet," a young ensign ventured, her voice a mix of fear and excitement. Jack's eyes narrowed. Earth's hidden fleet, a myth-turned-desperate gambit. Secretly built and hidden in the outer sectors, it was humanity's ace in the hole, unknown even to many within their own ranks. "Yes," Jack mused, the gears turning. "Bring the fleet out of the shadows. It's time they learned what Earth can really do." The plan was bold, dangerously so. But then, Jack Warner had never been one to shy away from a challenge, especially when the stakes were Earth itself. As the meeting adjourned, Jack returned to the observation deck. The stars seemed indifferent to human strife, their light steady and distant. But somewhere out there lay Earth's hidden might, a fleet forged in secrecy, soon to be baptized by fire. This galaxy was tense, filled with the quiet before the storm. Jack Warner, however, was ready to break that silence, to command Earth's response with a fury that would echo through the annals of space and time. Earth would strike back, and it would do so under his lead. The galaxy would just have to deal with it. Captain Jack Warner stood in the war room aboard Unity Station, the heart of Earth's strategic defense network. The room was abuzz with the tense energy of impending conflict. Officers and analysts hunched over their screens, feeding a constant stream of data into the glowing holographic displays that filled the center of the room. Each report seemed more dire than the last, outlining the Zoltraxian forces' systematic approach towards the strategic mining colony at the edge of the asteroid belt. Jack's gaze settled on a live feed showing the distant mining colony, now under siege. The Zoltraxians had deployed their dreadnoughts, immense ships that cast long shadows over the colony's modest defenses. The visuals were grim, a stark reminder of the alien technology's superiority and the brutal efficiency of their assault tactics. "Lieutenant Garcia, status report," Jack called out, his voice firm despite the rising concern that tightened his chest. Garcia approached, his face grim. "Sir, the Zoltraxians have encircled the colony. Our defensive units are holding, but barely. Casualties are mounting, and if we don't reinforce them soon, we'll lose the colony and control of the sector. Jack nodded slowly, processing the weight of each word. Losing the colony wasn't just a tactical defeat, it would signify a breach in humanity's outer defenses, opening up further colonies to the Zoltraxian threat. He turned to face the room, his eyes sweeping over the faces of his crew, each member acutely aware of the stakes at hand. "We need a new approach," he stated, more to himself than anyone else. The room fell silent, waiting for his orders. Jack walked over to the holographic map, his hand hovering over the blinking lights that represented Earth's hidden fleet. "It's time to deploy the fleet. Prepare the ships for a silent jump to the Zoltraxian flank." A murmur of surprise rippled through the room. The hidden fleet was Earth's last resort, a ghost armada never officially acknowledged by the Earth Command. To deploy it now was to reveal their hand prematurely, but Jack knew they had no other choice. "Sir, are you sure?" asked Commander Helen Zhao, her voice steady yet tinged with uncertainty. "Once we deploy, there's no turning back. The Zoltraxians will know we've been building in secret. It could escalate the conflict." Jack met her gaze, his decision resolute. "Commander, if we don't act now, there won't be a conflict to escalate. We'll be sitting ducks, waiting for them to pick us off one by one. It's now or never." Preparations began at once. Within hours, the hidden fleet, comprising some of the most advanced warships Earth had ever constructed, was ready. The ships, cloaked and silent, made their way towards the designated coordinates, their movements undetectable by conventional sensors. Meanwhile, Jack initiated a high-risk gambit, sending a small contingent of drones to distract the Zoltraxian forces. The drones, expendable and unmanned, darted towards the enemy lines, their trajectories erratic and unpredictable. Their purpose was simple: chaos. As the Zoltraxians diverted their attention to intercept the drones, the hidden fleet maneuvered into position. Back on Unity Station, Jack watched the strategy unfold, his expression unreadable. The next few hours would determine the fate of the colony, of Earth's strategic defenses, and perhaps the future of humanity itself. As the hidden fleet readied their weapons, a tense calm settled over the war room. Jack allowed himself a moment of introspection. His mind raced with the possibilities, the consequences of his decision, but his heart was steady. This was the job he was born to do: to lead, to defend, to make the hard choices when no one else could. The screen flickered as the first images of the hidden fleet engaging these Zoltraxian ships streamed in. Jack leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the battle that would mark the beginning of Earth's true resistance against the alien threat. The storm had gathered, and now it would break. The corridors of Unity Station were silent, a stark contrast to the tempest of activity within the war room. Captain Jack Warner navigated the steel pathways with a stern resolve. His mind was set on the upcoming covert operations, crucial for leveraging Earth's sudden offensive into a sustained campaign against the Zoltraxians. Inside the strategy room, Jack convened a select group of his top advisors and tacticians, the dim light casting long shadows over their determined faces. "We've caught them off guard, but one successful strike isn't enough to turn the tide," Jack began, his voice echoing slightly off the cold metal walls. "We need to keep the pressure on, exploit their current disarray." Commander Zhao, still wary from the initial risk, chimed in. "The fleet's success has given us an opening. Intelligence suggests the Zoltraxians are regrouping near the Ceres outpost. It might be our chance to hit them where it hurts." Jack nodded, processing the information. "Good. Prepare a task force. I want our ships to shadow their movements. We'll harry their forces, keep them unbalanced." As the group dispersed to carry out their orders, Jack received an unexpected encrypted message. The communication was stark, its source untraceable but unmistakably from within the Zoltraxian ranks, a potential defector offering critical intelligence. Jack weighed the risks of a trap against the potential gains from such information. Deciding the risk was worth it, he set up a clandestine meeting, far from prying eyes, on one of the lesser moons of Jupiter. Hours later, cloaked under the anonymity of a maintenance shuttle, Jack landed on the desolate moon. The meeting spot was a derelict station, long abandoned and forgotten by most of the solar system. He stepped into the shadowy ruins, his every sense alert. Out of the darkness, a figure emerged, a Zoltraxian, tall and imposing, clad in the sleek armor typical of their kind. Captain Warner, the alien, spoke, its voice a strange blend of mechanical and organic tones. "I am Lorzak. I believe we can assist each other." Jack kept his composure, aware of the many ways this could go wrong. "Speak quickly then. What information do you have?" Lorzak moved into the light, its features stark and angular, betraying no emotion. My faction opposes the war. We see it as a folly driven by our command's arrogance. I can provide you with the locations of their supply lines and upcoming strategic moves. And what do you want in return? Jack asked, his skepticism intact. Safety, asylum, and a promise that when this war ends, there will be a place for those of us who seek peace. Jack considered the offer. An alliance, however shaky, with a faction of Zoltraxians could shift the entire war's dynamics. You have my word. If your information turns out to be valuable. With the agreement made, Lorzak transferred the data. Jack returned to Unity Station, the weight of the new alliance heavy on his shoulders. This was more than just gathering intelligence, it was about forging a path to a potential peace. Back on the station, Jack disseminated the obtained intelligence to his tactical teams. The locations of Zoltraxian supply lines and key strategic points were marked for disruption. Earth's forces began immediate preparations for a series of quick, sharp attacks designed to sever the Zoltraxian supply chains and cripple their operational capabilities. As the fleet moved out, Jack watched the star-studded blackness of space from the command center. Each point of light seemed to hold a breath of possibility, a chance for victory, for peace. The shadows of war were deep and dark, but now they flickered with the light of hope. Jack knew the path ahead would be fraught with peril, but it was a path they must walk for Earth, for humanity, and perhaps now for a new alliance that might bring an end to the conflict. As the distant sun cast its dim light over the outer reaches of the asteroid belt, Captain Jack Warner stood on the bridge of the U.S. Vanguard the flagship of Earth's hidden fleet. The stars around them shimmered with the cold light of distant suns, a silent audience to the unfolding drama. Jack surveyed his crew, noting the quiet tension that filled the air. They were hours away from launching a major offensive aimed at crippling the Zoltraxian supply lines, following the intelligence provided by Lorzak. If successful, this operation could significantly weaken the enemy's ability to wage war in the sector. Captain, Commander Zhao approached with an update, her face reflecting the gravity of their situation. The fleet is in position. All units have confirmed readiness. We await your orders. Jack nodded, his gaze fixed on the holographic map displaying their targets. Initiate radio silence. I want to black out until we strike. Let's keep the element of surprise on our side. The command was relayed, and the bridge felt even quieter, the only sounds the soft hum of the ship's engines and the occasional beep of a console. Jack's thoughts turned inward. The weight of command was a familiar burden, yet each decision carried the lives of thousands. Tonight's actions would add many more to that tally. As the fleet moved into the shadow of a large asteroid, effectively masking their approach from standard sensors, Jack's tactical screen lit up with the final positions of their targets. They were scattered across 3 key locations, each critical to the Zoltraxian logistics network. "We're in position," whispered Lieutenant Sato, the fleet's operations officer. "On your command, sir." Jack took a deep breath, his decision clear. Execute Plan Delta. Engage the targets. The Vanguard shuddered slightly as it launched its first salvo of stealth torpedoes, the silent weapons of war slipping undetected through the vacuum of space toward their unsuspecting targets. Simultaneously, across the fleet, other ships unleashed their payloads, a coordinated dance of destruction choreographed by months of planning and a few crucial pieces of intelligence. Minutes passed in tense silence as the crew waited for confirmation of impact. Then, one by one, the reports came in: targets hit, supply depots destroyed, enemy communications disrupted. The operation was a success, but Jack knew this was only the beginning. "Prepare for countermeasures," he ordered. "They'll retaliate once they regroup. We need to be ready to move at a moment's notice." Commander Zhou looked at Jack, a hint of admiration in her eyes. "Sir, today we've dealt a significant blow to the Zoltraxians. Thanks to your leadership and Lorzak's intel, we're one step closer to securing our system." Jack gave a small nod, his face stern. "Keep the fleet on high alert, Commander. This is just the opening move in a much larger game." As night fell across the distant colonies of humanity, the eve of battle transitioned into a night of vigilance. The fleet remained hidden in the asteroid's shadow, ready to strike again or move to defend, depending on the enemy's response. On the Vanguard bridge, Jack Warner looked out into the vastness of space, a silent sentinel watching over the fragile lives scattered across distant planets and moons. Tonight, they had struck a blow for Earth, but tomorrow promised only more uncertainty, more conflict. Yet, amid the darkness, there was a glimmer of hope. The alliance with Lorzak and the successful engagement proved that Earth was not just surviving. It was fighting back with every ounce of cunning and courage it could muster. And under the command of Captain Jack Warner, the hidden fleet was Earth's unseen sword, striking from the shadows, ever vigilant, ever ready. The pre-dawn hours aboard the U.S. Vanguard were tense. The fleet had dispersed slightly, adopting a strategic formation designed to maximize their defensive capabilities while still posing a formidable offensive threat. Captain Jack Warner had barely left the bridge since the operation began, his presence a steady anchor for the crew amidst the storm of war. "Report," Jack called out, his voice calm but carrying an undercurrent of urgency. The main display screen flickered to life, showing the latest scans of the sector. "Sir, Saltraxian forces are mobilizing," reported Lieutenant Sato, highlighting several large blips moving toward their last known position. "It looks like they're regrouping faster than we anticipated." Jack nodded, his eyes scanning the data. "Estimate their arrival." "Less than 2 hours at their current speed," Sato replied. "We won't give them the chance to strike first," Jack decided, turning to face his command team. "Prepare all hands for combat. We'll meet them halfway." As the Vanguard and its sister ships powered up their engines, the mood among the crew shifted from anticipation to resolve. Today they were not just defenders but aggressors, taking the fight directly to an enemy that had plagued their borders for too long. The fleet moved swiftly through the asteroid belt, using the rocky terrain to their advantage. The Saltraxian fleet, larger and more formidable, appeared on the horizon like a swarm of dark locusts, ready to descend upon the Earth's forces. "Open a channel," Jack instructed, his gaze fixed on the approaching enemy. "This is Captain Jack Warner of the Earth Defense Fleet. You are in violation of neutral space and have engaged in acts of aggression against Earth and its colonies. Withdraw now, or we will engage." The only response was the silent, steady advance of the Saltraxian ships. "So be it," Jack muttered under his breath. "All ships engage at will." The battle commenced with a ferocious intensity. Earth's ships darted between asteroids, their smaller size and agility allowing them to maneuver around the bulkier Saltraxian vessels. Laser fire and missiles streaked through the void, illuminating the dark space with bursts of deadly light. Jack watched as the Vanguard landed a critical hit on a Saltraxian destroyer, its shields failing under the sustained barrage. But the victory was short-lived. A sudden counterstrike shook the Vanguard alarms blaring as the ship's hull integrity was compromised. "Damage report," Jack shouted over the din. "Shields down to 20%, hull breach in Section C4, the engineering officer reported, his voice tense. "Casualties reported." "Seal off the breach." "Redirect power to shields and keep firing," Jack commanded, clenching his fists. This was the reality of war, swift, brutal, and unforgiving. The battle raged around them, a chaotic dance of destruction. Jack's fleet fought valiantly, but the Saltraxian forces were relentless. Just as the situation seemed dire, a series of unexpected explosions erupted among these Saltraxian ships. It was Lorzak's promised assistance, sabotage from within. Seizing the opportunity, Jack ordered a full assault. "All units, concentrate fire on their flagship, now." With renewed vigor, Earth's ships unleashed everything they had. The Saltraxian flagship, already destabilized by internal sabotage, could not withstand the focused attack. It erupted into a brilliant fireball, scattering debris across the void. The destruction of their flagship sent a ripple through the Saltraxian fleet. Confusion and disarray followed, and without their command ship, their coordinated attacks faltered. "Press the advantage. Drive them back," Jack commanded, his voice resolute. Slowly but surely, the tide turned. The Saltraxian fleet, crippled by the loss of their flagship and harried by constant attacks, began to retreat. Jack watched as the enemy ships withdrew, their retreat marking a significant victory for Earth. As the adrenaline of battle faded, Jack felt a weary satisfaction. They had won the day, but the war was far from over. However, today's victory was a testament to the courage and resolve of his crew, and a sign that perhaps, just perhaps, peace might one day be possible. As the remnants of the Saltraxian fleet retreated into the darkness of space, the crew of the U.S. Vanguard and the rest of Earth's hidden fleet took a moment to catch their breath. The bridge of the Vanguard was quiet, the tense atmosphere of battle giving way to a subdued relief. Captain Jack Warner allowed himself a brief moment to reflect on the victory, his eyes sweeping over the damage reports and casualty lists scrolling across his screen. "Sir, we pushed them back," Commander Zhao reported, her voice carrying a mix of exhaustion and pride. "Their fleet is in disarray, and their command structure seems compromised. It's a significant blow." Jack nodded, his thoughts already turning to the next steps. "Organize recovery and repair teams. We need to be operational as soon as possible. Also, ensure that all data from the engagement is secured. I want detailed analyses on their tactics and any weaknesses we can exploit in the future." As the fleet began the process of regrouping and repairing, Jack received a secure communication from Earth Command. The news was better than expected. The victory had sparked a wave of support throughout the colonies, bolstering Earth's position both politically and militarily. "The Zoltraxians' retreat has given us the breathing room we needed," Jack discussed with his senior staff later in the strategy room. "But we can't afford to rest on our laurels. We must capitalize on this momentum." Commander Zhio nodded in agreement. The intel from Lorzak was invaluable, Captain. It might be beneficial to strengthen this alliance, perhaps bring more of the Zoltraxian dissenters to our side. Jack considered this. The notion of allying more closely with a faction within the enemy's ranks was risky but held potential. "Arrange another meeting with Lorzak. It's time we discuss a more formal alliance. We need every advantage we can get." Meanwhile, Jack initiated a series of reconnaissance missions to monitor Zoltraxian movements. It was essential to keep pressure on the enemy while they were still reeling from their defeat. As these plans were set into motion, Lorzak contacted Jack with an invitation to meet on a neutral space station in the outer sectors, away from prying eyes. Days later, Jack arrived at the designated meeting point, a station that orbited a desolate planet on the edge of neutral territory. Lorzak was already there, accompanied by two of his aides. The Zoltraxian's towering figure was less intimidating this time, more familiar, but no less imposing. "Captain Warner," Lorzak greeted, his voice modulated to convey a formal respect. "Your success in battle has stirred quite the discussion among my people. There are those who wish to join your cause." Jack listened intently as Lorzak outlined the terms of a potential alliance. In exchange for asylum and a pledge of support against the Zoltraxian hardliners, Lorzak's faction would provide Earth with strategic intelligence and operational support. "It's a fair offer," Jack concluded after considering the proposal, "and it's one we accept. Let's work together to end this conflict for good." The agreement was a historic one, marking the first time Earth formally allied with a faction of an alien race. As they shook hands, an unspoken understanding passed between them. This alliance was not just about mutual benefit, it was about changing the course of the war. Back on the Vanguard Jack felt a cautious optimism. The tide was indeed turning, but the path ahead was still fraught with dangers and uncertainties. Yet with each new ally and each victory, hope grew stronger. "Prepare for the next phase," Jack instructed his crew as they set course back to Earth. "This war is far from over, but today, we paved the way for peace." As the Vanguard cruised through the silent expanse of space, heading towards new challenges, Jack Warner stood resolute, ready to lead his fleet and his new allies into the future they were fighting to secure. After the historic alliance with Lorzak's faction, Captain Jack Warner felt a shift not just in the war's momentum, but in the broader narrative of humanity's place in the cosmos. The Vanguard and its fleet returned to Earth's space for repairs and resupply, greeted not just as defenders of human territory, but as harbingers of a new era of interstellar diplomacy and cooperation. The space docks around Earth and Mars were abuzz with activity as ships from both the human fleet and a few Zoltraxian defector ships were tended to side by side. This image of former adversaries working together was broadcast across all human colonies, symbolizing a newfound hope. Captain Warner greeted Admiral Hayes as Jack disembarked onto the command station orbiting Earth. "Your actions have not only secured our immediate safety but have opened doors we didn't even know existed." Jack nodded, acknowledging the Admiral's praise with a humble tilt of his head. "We've been given a chance, sir, a chance to end this conflict with more than just weapons." The Admiral walked with Jack, overlooking the panoramic view of Earth below. "There's talk in the Council about your nomination for a diplomatic envoy role, Jack. They believe your experience and your rapport with Lorzak could be key in negotiating a broader peace." Jack paused, considering the weight of such a role. "Diplomacy was never my first calling, sir, but I understand its necessity. If that's where I can serve best, then I'll do it." Meanwhile, news of the alliance and the recent victory had spread throughout human territories, igniting celebrations and a renewed sense of pride. However, amidst the public jubilation, Jack remained focused on the countless sacrifices that had brought them to this point. He requested a memorial be set up for the fallen, ensuring their heroism would not be forgotten in the shadow of political gains. As the memorial ceremony commenced, Jack stood before the gathered crowd, his uniform bearing the scars of recent battles. "Today we honor those who gave everything to protect our way of life," he began, his voice steady but laden with emotion. "Their sacrifices will not be in vain. We owe it to them to build a future where such sacrifices are no longer necessary." The ceremony was somber yet beautiful, with representatives from various colonies and even a few Zoltraxian defectors in attendance, all united in their respect for the fallen. In the days that followed, Jack met with Lorzak and other leaders from both sides, laying the groundwork for a peace summit. The discussions were challenging, with centuries of mistrust to overcome, but the potential for a lasting peace spurred all parties to find common ground. As Jack worked tirelessly, he often found himself gazing at Earth from the viewports of the station, reminded of why he fought so hard. It wasn't just about the survival of humanity, but about its ability to grow, learn, and hopefully forgive. The Peace Summit eventually convened on neutral ground, a space station in the mid-belt, equally distant from both human and Zoltraxian territories. Jack was there, not just as a military officer, but as a pioneer of peace. The talks were long and fraught with tension, but progress was palpable. When the treaty was finally signed, Jack felt a weight lift off his shoulders, a weight he hadn't realized he'd been carrying for so long. The war was over, and though the future was uncertain, the path toward reconciliation and rebuilding was clear. Returning to the Vanguard *, now designated as a symbol of peace, Jack took one last look at the bustling activity around him. The war had changed him, changed them all. But here in the silence of space, looking at the beautiful blue orb that was Earth, Jack felt hope. He turned to his crew, a mix of old faces and new, human and Zoltraxian. "Let's go home," he said with a gentle smile. The Vanguard * set course for Earth, cutting through the cosmos like a ship through still waters, its mission no longer one of war, but one of peace and homecoming. As the U.S. Vanguard * coasted through the star-studded expanse on its journey back to Earth, Captain Jack Warner stood reflective at the helm. The treaty had been signed, marking the end of hostilities and the beginning of what many hoped would be a lasting peace. Earth and its colonies could finally look forward to a future without the shadow of Zoltraxian conflict looming over them. The command bridge was quiet, a stark contrast to the frenetic pace of the past months. Crew members spoke in subdued tones, perhaps out of respect for the immense changes or simply from the exhaustion that comes after prolonged tension. Jack felt the quietude was fitting, a necessary calm after the storm they had weathered together. "Captain, we're approaching Earth's orbit," Lieutenant Sato announced, his voice pulling Jack from his thoughts. "Thank you, Lieutenant. Keep us on a standard approach pattern," Jack responded, his gaze lingering on the blue orb growing larger in their view. Earth, with its swirling clouds and vast oceans, had never seemed so welcoming. As the Vanguard * entered Earth's atmosphere, Jack prepared for the ceremonies that awaited them. The ship and its crew were to be honored in a series of global celebrations, their achievements recognized across every colony. However, Jack knew the real heroes were those who wouldn't be attending, those who had sacrificed everything to ensure this moment could happen. Upon landing, Jack was met with fanfare, crowds cheered, banners waved, and the media broadcasted the return of the peace heroes worldwide. Amidst the celebrations, Jack was whisked away to speak to leaders, dignitaries, and the press. Each conversation, each interview asked him about the war, the peace, and what the future held. "It's a new horizon for us all," Jack told a gathering of reporters. "Not just a cessation of hostilities, but a chance to build something together with those we once called enemies." Plans were already underway for joint human-Zoltraxian projects, rebuilding war-torn sectors, establishing joint research endeavors, and cultural exchanges designed to foster understanding and cooperation. Jack was appointed as a liaison in many of these projects, his experience and diplomatic prowess deemed invaluable. However, it was during a quiet evening, after the day's festivities had ended, that Jack felt the full weight of their achievements. Alone in his office, he looked over the star maps, now redrawn to include Zoltraxian territories, not as areas of threat, but as regions of partnership. The door chimed gently, and Commander Zhao stepped in. "Sorry to disturb you, Captain, but there's a message for you from Lorzak. He wishes to discuss the next steps for the Joint Council." Jack smiled, a genuine expression of readiness for the challenges ahead. "Thank you, Commander. Tell Lorzak I'll be ready to meet first thing in the morning." As Zell left, Jack turned back to the window, looking out at the night sky. The stars seemed different now, not just points of light, but symbols of potential. Potential for exploration, for understanding, and for peace. Reflecting on the journey, Jack realized that while the war had defined so much of his life, it was the peace that would be his legacy. A legacy not of conquest, but of reconciliation, and a new path forward for all humanity and their former foes. With a sense of contentment and hope, Jack Warner finally turned away from the stars and prepared for bed. Tomorrow would bring more work, more challenges, and more opportunities to ensure that this peace, hard-won and precious, would endure. As he drifted off to sleep, he knew the Vanguard would continue to sail through new horizons, not as a warship, but as a vessel of a grander, more profound mission.